to choose a provider you trust with no network restrictions and savings of up to 40%. Learn more and enroll today at chministries.org/faith5. That's chministries.org/faith5.
Financial fear is real, but so is God's promise to provide. At Faith5, we know the daily stress of money can overwhelm your heart, but Jesus reminds us to look at the birds of the air and look at the sparrows, a 21-day devotional. You'll find peace by focusing on God's faithfulness as you discover how to overcome financial anxiety with faith. Request a copy of the Look at the Sparrows devotional today with your gift of $25 or more by going to faithfi.com/give.
As our nation faces a host of unprecedented challenges, it's important that we use the Lord's provisions to support conservative judicial nominees, advance biblical principles, and help faithful Americans contend for truth in the public arena. AFA Action is working at the federal, state, and even school board levels to promote critical policies to protect your family. But in order to accomplish our mission, we need help from faithful partners like you to reach our year-end budget goal. So please visit afaaction.net to give today. afaaction.net. As the leading advocate for the Christian financial industry, Kingdom Advisors serves the public by promoting the integration of a biblical worldview across every aspect of the financial services industry. And we serve a growing network of thousands of Christian financial professionals, equipping and empowering them to carry biblical financial wisdom to their clients, peers, and community. For more information, visit kingdomadvisors.com. That's kingdomadvisors.com.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
I'm so glad to have you with us today on Faith and Finance here on American Family Radio, helping you see God as your ultimate treasure and money a tool to accomplish God's purposes. If you have a question today in your financial life, well, we've got lines open. We're ready for you. We'd love to take your call at 800-525-7000. We've got, looks like 4 lines open right now, 800-525-7000. Whatever is on your mind today, whether it's your lifestyle and your budget, maybe it's the best way to pay off debt. Maybe you're struggling with that credit score. You're getting ready to buy a house or get a car loan and it's concerning you. Maybe you want to give wisely, especially this time of year, and maybe you're thinking about giving appreciated assets. Well, the American Family Association Foundation would love to come alongside you and help you think about the role of a charitable gift annuity, perhaps giving appreciated stock or maybe a piece of real estate. Maybe you want to do a qualified charitable distribution out of your IRA. Well, any of those topics and more, we'd love to chat with you about. The number, 800-525-7000. You can call right now. Let's see, we're going to head out to Texas. Andre, thanks for calling, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you for having me. So my question is regarding giving, if I could get some biblical context on giving, tithing within the community. A preference, for some context to that, I'm 29 years old, I've been married 2 years, so we're still building financially. We try to do things like do free training for the neighborhood and things like that. The main thing is there sometimes, people, I've heard from some of the churches in my area that people don't appreciate free. So it's like trying to figure out how to give back while still building financially and the business. I guess that's not my first fruits, obviously, but there's moments and times where all I can afford is rent or food, just in this time. So just.
Yeah, I missed some of what you said, but I think I got the gist of it, Andre. You're 29 and just wanting to know, as you're trying to manage God's money wisely and build assets for the future, you also want to give systematically and proportionately, and so you're thinking about the tithe and how that works and fits in to your financial life as somebody who's just kind of starting out in the early years of your career. And listen, I get that. I think it's important to take a step back and just think about the role of giving and generosity in our financial lives as stewards. You know, first of all, we were created in the image of the ultimate giver, God himself. And so I like to think we're most like him when we're giving, when we're being generous. We can't outgive God. And it should be not something that we do under compulsion, which is clear in the New Testament, not because we have to check a box or we feel guilty, but as an overflow of our gratitude to God. It's an act of worship. And yeah, I think there's a place for the tithe as a starting point, what Randy Randy Alcorn, the author, calls the training wheels of giving. The tithe is a beautiful and ancient practice of giving a tenth or 10%. It's become the standard way I think many Christians think about their giving, and whether or not a tithe is required for Christians today is a matter of ongoing debate. But I think in the midst of those debates, we need to step back and take a close look at the tithe within the Bible itself. We see it both in the Old and New Testament. The idea of tithing appears, depending on the translation you're looking at, 15 times in Scripture, with the word itself being used nearly 50 times. In the Old Testament, it starts very early when we see Abraham giving a tenth of his war spoils to Melchizedek, the priest. We see, Jacob making a conditional promise to tithe if God fulfills Jacob's commitment. We see in Leviticus, it defines the tithe for Israel as a tenth of all agricultural production, which would be fruit and vegetables and grains and animals. And then in Numbers, it becomes a wage income, for the Levites who have no land of their own, the Levitical priests. And then we see two new tithes in Deuteronomy, one for the festival tithe, which was brought to Jerusalem and then consumed by the giver, actually, along with their community, celebrating before God. And then we see the festival tithe, while there also is instructions for a third type of tithe to set aside for the poor and needy. So, we see this throughout the Old Testament. We see it again in the New Testament. Matthew and Luke capture parallel passages where Jesus condemns the Pharisees for their hypocrisy because they were religiously tithing on their herbs, and yet they were failing to develop godly character. And then Jesus talks about a proud Pharisee's boastful prayer in Luke, and then in Hebrews we see this discussion about the priesthood of Jesus, and there's a reference to the tithe there. And so I think as we kind of look at all of that, one of the things we have to recognize is that in all of these chapters, these 21 Bible chapters include the longest and richest teachings on money given by Jesus. And in all of those chapters, there's really not even a single mention of the tithe. So what do we take away from that? Well, I think, clearly we're to give systematically and proportionally. Clearly we're to give faithfully to the local church to advance the gospel and rightly compensate our spiritual leaders. That honors the Levitical tithe. We're to save up for and generously, I think, participate in God-honoring celebrations. We're to remember the poor and the needy. So I think we recognize the ancient standard of generosity as a beginning point. But again, this is not about kind of checking a box and being legalistic about it. I think it needs to be an overflow, a response to God's grace that's given freely and joyfully on a regular schedule, proportionate to our financial status, and directed to the causes that honor the kingdom of God on earth, starting with the local church, which is God's plan A. And then we should look for ways to give more beyond that, even sacrificially. And that means that, Daniel, especially early in your working life, you're going to have to decide to live, modestly and right-size your lifestyle so that you're able to give first right off the top and honor the tithe. And then you're able to, save and perhaps even give more as the Lord leads you, and then live on the rest. And that's not easy to do, but it's the good life, because the generous life is the good life. Does that all make sense, though?
Yes, sir, it does. It does. I think, and I don't know if we have time, but I guess there's a tidbit that I guess my family, like my grandmothers especially, they tell me all the time, because I'm the oldest. My mother had me at 13, so for a long time I've been told, one day I'll have to take care of my parents. But now that I'm older and I've spent so much time investing into, like, kind of help with the family, they kind of told me, like, you can't help anyone until you take care of yourself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's some truth to that. Now, listen, a lot of this comes down to, recognizing that any of our goals that align with our values, whether that's being able to bless a family member, or give more, or save for the future, or start a business, all of that hinges on our ability to live within our means and have margin or a surplus so that we have something left over beyond the here and now to do those things that are important to us. And as a, one flesh, as a married couple, I think the opportunity there is to take a step back and say, okay, let's make this a matter of prayer. Let's talk about our values and our priorities as Christ followers. Let's talk about what's important to us and how can money as a tool be used to accomplish those purposes. There's not unlimited funds, so you need to, make sure you're doing the right things as you pray through it. But a part of that, I think, is being able to give right off the top, and then as the Lord leads, be able to, do more along the way. And you know what? It's a big part of our faith walk too. Money issues are hard issues. They're spiritual in nature. And so I think this is one of the ways we work out our faith is through these practical daily money decisions. It can compete with our hearts, but if we get it in the right place, it's a real blessing. Thanks for your call. We'll be right back. Our thanks to Certified Kingdom Advisor Wade Chessman, President and Wealth Advisor, and his team at Chessman Wealth Strategies in Dallas for their support of faith and finance. Their goal is to help their clients expand their understanding of biblical financial principles and how to implement them. The website is chessmanwealth.com. The phone number is 214-572-2120. Investment advisory services offered through CWM LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.
I'm talking about Donald Trump, the human being. I'm talking about how a person that's 78 years old, he was giving speeches up until
3 in one day.
I'd like to write a book on how he does
What's the vitamin regimen?
How many Big Macs you should have.
What if Big Macs and no exercise are actually the things that make you stronger?
Today's Issues, weekday mornings at 11 Eastern, 10 Central on American Family Radio. FaithFi is grateful for support from One Ascent. One Ascent believes that your values inspire why you invest and how they can inspire how you invest. One Ascent's goal is to provide solutions designed for every need and invest in businesses that bless the people and places God has made. They want to help investors do well by doing good, to explore a new way of investing that aligns with your values. More information is available at oneascent.com and by clicking Analyze My Investments.
If the heavy burden of debt is robbing you of freedom and peace of mind, Christian Credit Counselors can help. We're a nationwide nonprofit credit counseling organization that has helped over 300,000 individuals in the last 27 years get out of credit card debt 80% faster while honoring that debt in full. To learn how Christian Credit Counselors can help you, visit ChristianCreditCounselors.org. That's ChristianCreditCounselors.org, or call 800-557-1985.
Great to have you with us today on Faith and Finance here on American Family Radio. I'm Rob West. Before we head back to the phones today, and by the way, we have a couple of lines open, 800-525-7000. I'd like to ask you to partner with us here at FaithFi, especially here at the end of the year as we try to close out the year and meet our listener support goal for the year. We're just over $100,000 away from doing that. The goal for the entire year is about $100,000 short, and each gift until we reach that goal is doubled by some generous friends of ours that have come alongside us to partner with us and to invest in the ministry. But it's a real match. The money doesn't come in as a match until it comes in first from listeners. And so a gift of any amount would be a real blessing to us here at FaithFi. Just head to faithfi.com and click Give. That's faithfi.com and click Give. And every gift between now and December 31st will be double. It's going to take some small gifts. It's going to take some large gifts. And so if you have some capacity and this broadcast has been a blessing to you, well, this would be a great opportunity for you to leverage that gift to equip more stewards. Just go to faithfi.com and click Give today. All right, we're going to go back to the phones today. We'll get to as many calls as we can before we round out the broadcast. If you have a question, we've got room for you just for the next few minutes. 800-525-7000. Let's go to Texas. Hi, Daniel. Thanks for your patience. Go ahead.
Good morning, sir. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
So, I just wanted to ask you, I'm a recent high school graduate, and I'm looking to go to college in the fall of this coming year. And I just wanted to know, what are your thoughts for me? Should I get a job and just put all the money into savings and, live as sparingly as I can, or should I try to invest to make that money work for me in that interim period?
Yeah. And so you just graduated, and this is money that you're going to use in the next 4 years because it's all money that's going to pay for your tuition. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I think just by definition, Daniel, we really don't have the time horizon for you to invest this money. If you had at least 5 years, preferably closer to 10 years, I'd say it's a no-brainer. Let's, put this money away, get it invested, whether it's in a taxable account because you need it a little sooner, or you start seeding a Roth IRA for retirement. I mean, what an amazing blessing if for the next 50 years that money could compound in that account. I mean, it would be amazing. And, that demonstrates the power of compounding. It's just so powerful. But just kind of given the use of this money that you're talking about, if you go out and get a part-time job and you're trying to, create some more capacity to be able to graduate with as little debt as possible, hopefully none. Yeah, there's just really not a case for investing at that point, because what you may find is, especially just given how high this market is right now, I mean, just on the heels of this election, with November and December typically being pretty strong for the market, on top of the enthusiasm for the incoming administration, we've been hitting new highs in the broad market indexes just about every day. And so for you to put money in, let's say we were to have that 5 or 10% or more correction, that would be very normal, despite the fact that I think everything that is being talked about with the Trump administration, has to do with long-term growth and is very positive for the U.S. economy. There are going to be corrections in the market along the way. And what I wouldn't want for you to have happen is you're working hard, you're going to school, you're putting money in the market, and that bill comes due and the investments you have are down 5 or 10 or 15%, you're having to sell at a loss. So I think for that reason, I just put it in a high-yield savings account, find the one with the best interest rate at bankrate.com. It's probably going to be an online bank. I'd look for one 4 or 5 star rated, and at least you're getting a little interest along the way. But the key is to have access to the money when you need it and not put it at risk. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Totally. Thank you.
Awesome. Hey, congrats to you, and we appreciate you being on the program today. Hey, stay on the line. I want to send you a resource. Some friends of ours put together an incredible resource called Open Hands Finance, and it was written for college students just to help them understand both the practical side of money management and God's heart and how those come together. Rachel Wong and her husband Brian put this together, and it's amazing. I think it'll be a blessing to you. If you stay on the line, we'll send you a copy of Open Hands Finance, okay?
Thank you very much, and thank
Absolutely.
you for your ministry.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate you saying that. Let's stay in Texas and talk to Crystal. How can I help? Hi, Crystal. Are you with us? Crystal, there you are. Go right ahead.
Okay. So we have basic ideas to teach our kids about, giving or, anything about what the Bible is talking about, financial wisdom, but not necessarily, I guess you could say, we don't have a structure necessarily, we just have random thoughts here and there. And I was just wondering if you have any resources or books that you recommend specifically for kids, to kind of guide them in that area for wisdom, financial wisdom.
Absolutely. So a couple of thoughts, and I love that you're thinking about this because it's really important that we, get in front of our kids early and model good financial decision making, both from a practical standpoint as well as a biblical worldview. And there's a couple of resources that I think could be helpful. What are the ages of the kids?
So between 7 and 12.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so there's a series of books by a contributor here at Faith and Finance, one of our friends, Dr. Art Rayner. It's called The Secret Slide Money Club, and it's a series of books meant to teach biblical principles of money management, but in a fun, entertaining read. It's an early reader fiction series, so it's geared toward kids ages 6 to 9. And it uses humor and adventure to teach kids these foundational principles of financial health: give, save, and live. And it's fast-paced, and there's a lot of fun in it. And I think you really enjoy it. Maybe it'd make for a great Christmas gift. So if you just go wherever you buy books, you could go to Amazon, you could go to artrainer.com. But again, it's called the Secret Slide Money Club, and there's a series of them. You could start with one, see if they like them, and then pick up some others. I think that would be great. Also at our friends at Compass Financial Ministry, compassfinancialministry.org, they have some great resources for adults and kids to think about family financial discipleship. So that could be another great resource for you as well, okay?
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thanks for calling today. Lord bless you. Let's go to Arkansas. Hi, Al. How can I help?
Yeah, hey, Rob. Thank you so much for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you. We've saved money for years and had actual hard cash in the house for emergency use only, but we have no large expenses. Everything's paid for. We're living on Social Security, whatever. I just wondered how much of that should I keep in the house, and then also if I don't keep it in the house, but you want it to be somewhat liquid, what would be the best use of that? How should I use that to still make a little bit of percentage rather than, put the money in the coffee can in the backyard and it sits there rot?
Yes, sir. No, it's a great question, Al. So here's my approach on this. There's not a right or wrong answer, but this is just one way to think about it. I like the idea of keeping 2 weeks worth of expenses in cash at home. And I would do that in ideally a fireproof safe. And the idea behind that money is a temporary disruption. It could be, some sort of natural disaster. You're in Arkansas, so maybe a tornado, comes through and, there's a temporary disruption in the flow of, goods and services or something like that. Maybe there's a temporary banking outage with your particular branch, and it has to do with the kind of the technical plumbing of the banking system or something like that would be quickly resolved. But the idea would be that you could kind of have money on hand without having to go to an ATM or anything like that for a couple of weeks. Beyond that, I would have that in a bank, and I'd use an online savings account with an online bank linked to your brick and mortar checking account. Now, don't let the idea of an online bank scare you. It just means, that they are operating by the same guidelines as any other bank. They still have the FDIC insurance and the same reserve requirements and everything else. It's just that they don't have the brick and mortar operations, and they can take a lot of that savings and pass it along in the form of higher interest rates. And so, you could go to bankrate.com and click on high yield savings, and you'd see today which of those banks, and I'd look for banks that are 4.5 or 5-star rated, are offering the very best interest rates with no minimum deposit and no fees. And then you could open that account online in a few minutes, and then again link that up to your checking account so you can move money back and forth as you need to, free, within 2 or 3 days, typically through the ACH system. The other approach would be to contact our friends at Christian Community Credit Union at joinchristiancommunity.com if you want a banking partner that's aligned with your values, and they offer some great rates. So I think all of those, could be a great resource to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we use them for our credit card, and
awesome.
So I don't have a checking account with them yet, but I like their ministry, so
excellent.
I'll call them and talk to them then.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, joinchristiancommunity.com is the website, and more and more, Al, and I'm sure this is the case for you guys, God's people want to do business with organizations that align with their values, because they don't want part of the money going to support things they don't believe in. And that's why, whether it's our investing and where we started today with our friends at 1 Ascent, by the way, at their website, 1ascent.com, you can check your portfolio and see how it aligns with your values, or a banking partner like Christian Community Credit Union, joinchristiancommunity.com. Great opportunity to have world-class offerings, but make sure that you're aligned with your values. Hope that helps you, my friend. Thanks for being on the program. Lord bless you. Well, that's going to do it for us today. Again, every gift to FaithFi doubled, and this is a really important time between now and year end. Would you head to faithfi.com and click give today? Gifts of all sizes doubled, and we would be incredibly grateful. Big thanks to my team today, Devin Patrick, Sandy Dickinson, Taylor Stanrich, and everybody here at FaithFi that makes this happen. Lord bless you. Thanks for being along with us today. We'll see you tomorrow.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
90.5 KTXG, Greenville, Dallas.
Author of the book, A Minute for Caregivers, When Every Day Feels Like Monday.
I've been a caregiver for nearly 40 years, and I know how important it is to encourage a family caregiver. I also understand that caregivers don't have a lot of time, and each chapter of my book can be read in a minute. It's encouragement, support, and each chapter will point you to safety. Oh, by the way, they're all written in fluent caregiver.
A Minute for Caregivers is available at resources.afa.net.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Mr. P. Authorities have arrested a suspect who they believe shot and killed United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson in New York City. 26-year-old Luigi Mangione was arrested in Altoona, Pennsylvania after he was spotted at a McDonald's. Altoona police officer Tyler Fry was the officer who arrested the suspect, and he reacted to carrying out such a big bust only 6 months into his career.
It feels good to get a guy like that off the street, especially for the way career this way. It feels great.
Daniel Penny has been found not guilty of criminally negligent homicide against Jordan Neely after the courts dismissed the charge of manslaughter. The verdict reached on Monday puts to rest the criminal case against the former Marine, who will now face a civil suit. George Washington University law professor and Fox News legal consultant Jonathan Turley says this case was an indictment of Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg.
Really, this jury was speaking not just in terms of themselves, but I think in terms of the city at large. At the end of this process, this was a very strong voice that in New York, you really don't have to walk away. You don't have to just watch. But the problem here is the mixed message by Bragg. He put this person through a criminal trial. He'll now face a civil trial brought by the family. And the question is, what was it that Bragg was representing? Ultimately, the criminal justice system protects our most fundamental values. What's the value here? You know, across the city, in the other case involving the shooting of the CEO, you had the mayor saying, you know, this shows people need to step forward and act. Well, just blocks away, you just tried a guy, at least Bragg did, who did precisely that.
Secretary of Defense nominee Pete Hegseth continues to meet with senators as he fights to save his nomination amid numerous allegations of sexual assault. He previously came under fire for allegedly saying that women don't belong in combat roles.
Some of our greatest warriors, our best warriors out there are women who serve, raise their right hand to defend this country and love our nation, want to defend that flag, and they do it every single day around the globe. So I'm not presuming anything, but after President Trump asked me to be his Secretary of Defense, should I get the opportunity to do that, I look forward to being a secretary for all our warriors.
AFA Action is calling out Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor for comments she made during oral arguments in the Tennessee gender manipulation ban case. Steve Jordahl reports.
Tennessee Attorney General Jonathan Skrmetti was making the argument that giving minors puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones risks permanent damage to the kids when Justice Sonia Sotomayor made this absurd comparison.
I'm sorry, counselor. Every medical treatment has a risk. Even taking aspirin. There is always going to be a percentage of the population under any medical treatment that's going to suffer a harm.
AFA Action CEO Walker Wildmon says that's an ignorant statement.
This was patently absurd and factually untrue, by the way, which is it's provable that these surgeries are 1,000 times more risky than taking over-the-counter pain meds.
The case is a challenge to a Tennessee law that bans giving hormone treatments or body disfiguring surgeries to children and teens. 3 transgender young people, represented by the ACLU, say the law violates the 14th Amendment by treating them differently than other minors. Wildman says there were other lies from the bench.
Another falsehood that was stated was that, well, you know, there may be some risk involved for some minors, but, you know, there are millions others that are receiving relief as a result of these body-altering surgeries. To call what's happening to these minors as, quote, relief, that's just not true.
He says instead of mutilating and permanently damaging these children, the state has a responsibility to protect them. I'm Steve Jordahl.
World shares are mixed after U.S. stock indexes closed lower on Monday. U.S. futures slipped. The week's highlight for markets will likely be a midweek update on consumer inflation in the U.S. More news online at afn.net and download the AFN mobile app for your Apple or Android device. I'm Rusty Pugh.
What we believe about the Bible is based on what we believe about its source.
The God Who Speaks, the award-winning documentary from the American Family Association, is now available in a special limited edition DVD set. This release includes a Sunday school curriculum and 2 hours of additional footage. Go to thegodwhospeaks.org to get your copy today. thegodwhospeaks.org. Welcome to Today's Issues, offering a Christian response to the issues of the day. Here's your host, Tim Wildmon, President of the American Family Association.
Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network for this Tuesday, December the 10th, 2024. Thanks for listening to AFR. Tim Wildman here with Ed Battagliano. Good morning, Ed.
Good morning, Tim.
And Fred Jackson.
Good morning, Tim.
Again, we thank you all for listening to AFR. And Fred, we got some news this morning. We got a lot of news to talk about, but first of all, is this story involving this New York murder.
Yeah, 24 hours ago, we were sitting here doing this show, and the news broke that police at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania, had arrested a young man that they believe was the suspect in the shooting death of this CEO.
How did that happen? How did it all go down?
Well,
as far as him being found out.
Well, he was at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania. This young man, his name is Luigi Nicholas Mangione, 26 years old.
What ethnicity is that?
Ask Ed.
Oh, man. Well, y'all just go ahead, because I knew when I heard this guy's name, I said to myself, right. You can expect it tomorrow.
Yeah. It's not Scottish.
Yeah.
But he was at a McDonald's, a kind of low-profile McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania.
As opposed to a high-profile.
Yes, high-profile.
Stop it, Tim.
Yeah.
Just stop it.
He got on a bus in New York, and I guess this is where he ended up, almost 300 miles from New York City where the murder took place. So he's sitting there, and there is another customer at that McDonald's who says, that guy looks like the pictures that we've seen of the suspect in the New York murder. He goes to a McDonald's employee who has
the customer does.
The customer does. Yeah. He goes to the McDonald's employee. They call 911. The cops arrive. This young man, Mr. Mangione, is sitting there. He has a surgical mask on his face, but his other clothing looks like the clothing that we've seen in the pictures coming out of the New York murder. And they begin to question him. Among other things, they ask for ID. When he shows the ID, it is the same false ID that he showed at that hostel in New York. They start to put the two things together. He also had on his this gun that was used. It's one of these guns that you create with a printer.
It's a 3D printer. It's called a ghost gun.
A ghost gun. So they put all of these things together. They start to go through his backpack. And what they find, amongst other things in this backpack, is a note. And I want to read from the Associated Press, which is quoting the note that they found to the feds. I'm quoting now what was on the note. To the feds, I'll keep this short because I do respect what you do for our country. To save you a lengthy investigation, I state plainly that I wasn't working with anyone. It also had a line that said on this note, quote, I do apologize for any strife or traumas, but it had to be done. Frankly, these parasites simply had it coming, end quote.
So they've arrested him, obviously. He, later in the day yesterday, was charged with the murder of Mr. Thompson, that's CEO of United Healthcare in New York. By the way, the Pennsylvania police also said they found him. He had a passport on him. He had $10,000 in cash, and $2,000 of that $10,000 was in foreign currency. Does that speak to a plan? The other thing, and we have this Associated Press on our website, afn.net, is that this young man, well-educated, he was valedictorian at his elite Baltimore prep school. He earned an undergraduate and graduate degrees in computer science in 2020 from the University of Pennsylvania. He lived in Hawaii, and some of the people there have said that Mangione had a health problem with his back. He had a lot of pain in his back, and which kept him out of sports, etc., etc. Is this connected to a motive for going after Mr. Thompson? We don't know. He is still a suspect officially, but pieces are starting to come together.
Yeah, I'm going to say, first of all, he comes from a wealthy family. This is a well-educated, Ivy League education young man, and we do need to be careful to say he's the alleged murderer in what happened to this CEO. But let me just say this.
But didn't he say he acted alone?
He did.
Okay, that's an admittance. I understand what you're saying about alleged.
Yeah, I'm just crossing T's and dotting I's.
Right.
So let me say that this is going to sound shocking, but I'm going to explain what I mean by this. This young man is not a sociopath. No. He's not a psychopath. The reason I say that, I'm not a psychiatrist, but when the cops at McDonald's started questioning him, and they asked him, I think, just several questions, and the third one maybe was, were you in New York recently? Yes. And then this young man started shaking.
Yes.
Okay, so that tells me it's not a sociopath, someone who's ice cold, a murderer who doesn't flinch. Okay, so then I start to say, well, then what motivated his actions? And Fred, you and I were talking before the show began. I go back to the London terrorists, these young Muslim men, all came from wealthy backgrounds, and ideology does it. Yeah. Ideology radicalizes people and causes them to do these kinds of actions. And that's why I say they're not just sociopaths where they just hate all humanity. This young man, well-educated, I want to know, I don't know, maybe we'll never have answers to these questions, probably not right away. Did his education radicalize him? Is this where he got ideology that led him to think, I'm going to go take out one of these quote-unquote parasites?
Yeah.
This is not what, people say, sometimes progressives will say people commit crimes because they're poor, because they're disadvantaged, because they don't have opportunities. Well, I don't know. That's an argument for another day. But this guy didn't have, none of that applied to him. He wasn't a psychopath. It has to boil down to some sort of ideological radicalization. And then the question is, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Well, I'm surprised a lot of this story that's, I guess, that we'll know more about in the coming days. But I don't know where he intended to go. It doesn't sound like he had much of a plan beyond 4 or 5 days.
Well, the fact that he had $10,000 in cash on him and $2,000 in foreign currency, or they don't know what the currency was, I think his plan may have been to get out of the country eventually.
Yeah.
If he had $2,000 in foreign currency.
Yeah, but
to your point, that's still not really a plan. What are you going to do then?
That's what I'm saying. You're going to live. So you're going to where? I don't know. Coast.
You're going to eat fish tacos down in
right.
Belize?
For how long are you going to do that?
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like to me he had much of a plan. If he's sitting in a McDonald's in Altoona.
It just bothers me This young man had all these advantages. Listen, you go to these kinds of schools and you get these kinds of degrees, then work to change the system, man.
Yeah.
Spend your life as a hero of those who think the healthcare system in this country needs to be changed. Make a living for yourself, get married, have kids. You're changing nothing by shooting some guy in the back.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Again, I probably won't know this for a while. We were talking about this before the program. How did he know this guy was staying at the Hilton? Was it the Hilton? It wasn't it?
I believe it was.
Yeah. Well, of course, there are many Hilton hotels in New York City. I'm just saying, at this particular hotel, how did this guy know that the CEO, Williams, right?
Brian Thompson.
Mr. Thompson was staying there. How did he know what time he was going to come out? How did he know which exit? I mean, I guess, you know what I'm saying?
He clearly knew who the guy was. The video.
He knew who he was. Now, he could probably identify him by photograph. I mean, or maybe he had met him in person a time or two, some kind of situation. You know, like you said, Fred, if this guy was a shareholder,
that's a good point.
Maybe he was at a meeting where Mr. Thompson, the CEO, was previously. But I want to know how he knew where he was staying, and maybe it was a guess, or maybe he saw him come into the hotel from a distance. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Those things, but then to wait and to lie in wait, as they say, waiting on him to come out. What if he came out at 10 in the morning? Maybe he did.
Yeah, and the sidewalk is filled with people.
Yeah, because he was. Anyway, that's all that's yet to be determined. But when this fellow says, I acted alone. Okay, he's going to have to explain how all those things he knew by himself, I guess I should say.
And with this manifesto that handwritten with which he was caught, I'm sure this guy's probably singing.
How do we know the manifesto so quick?
It was a handwritten note. I guess they found it.
It was an exact replica of the one he had posted online.
Okay, gotcha.
That's all. Okay. Somebody said it's a replica of the one that was posted online.
Okay, well, he's going to prison now. If not, I don't think they have the death penalty in New York, right? I don't think so. So, but he'll go to prison for a long time. He doesn't quite fit the profile of what you might expect, except that maybe there's some kind of a motivation here. Maybe he was denied some kind of claim, or he knows somebody who was and it angered him, or he just hates the insurance industry, health insurance industry, because he thinks generally they do people wrong. And so that's what makes any CEO of a company who does people wrong all the time by not approving claims. Yep. That makes him a parasite, just by who he works for and what he does.
By the way, New York does not have the death penalty.
Right.
So that was ruled unconstitutional in 2004.
Right. All right. You're listening to today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. So this fella, what's his name again?
Luigi
Mangione. So he will be extradited to New York City probably today, I think.
There's some question over who gets him. And so obviously I think New York City will, but I mean, the feds have a claim here too. He crossed state lines. So wherever he might.
Federal charges?
Yeah, federal charges. Probably, I'm guessing it would be New York.
Well, Alvin Bragg let him out.
Even Alvin Bragg would do that.
If Alvin Bragg has jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Why? Well, Alvin Bragg does. He lets violent criminals go.
Yeah, it does. When they've been treated unjustly, Tim, as we all know that anybody on.
Yeah, they don't care. In New York, this guy's a flaming liberal. I mean, just bleeding on.
Mr. Neely, was alive when the police first arrived after someone called 911, but Mr. Neely died. Alvin Bragg, prosecutor we were just talking about, charges Daniel Penny with manslaughter and with negligence. Jury could not come to an agreement on the manslaughter charge, so the prosecution and the judge said, okay, just dismiss that charge and go to the negligence charge. Well, the jury came back Monday morning, after being off all weekend, and within, I think, 45 minutes or something like that, found him not guilty on the negligence charge. So, Mr. Penny, now there is a civil case going to be lodged against him by the family of Mr. Neely. But outside that courtroom yesterday in New York, there was a group, Black Lives Matter group, a lawyer for the Neely family, and I want you to have a listen to the Black Lives Matter representative, I'll put it that way, and see what he has to say in the way of reaction to Daniel Penny being found not guilty. Cut number 2.
Just like everybody else seeks justice on their own, just like everybody else has vigilantes, we need some black vigilantes.
That's right.
People want to jump up and choke us and kill us for being loud. How about we do the same when they attempt to oppress us?
Oh, me, that's just so tiresome.
The only good thing in that clip is I didn't hear a bunch of people applauding and saying.
So 7 people there.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that the vast majority of black people in New York understand that this is a race baiter, someone who hates.
They do.
And that what he's saying is not an accurate reflection of what happened on that subway. Right. Which I guess is progress, because that's reprehensible behavior. Is that a lawyer?
No, there is a lawyer for the family.
That's just a representative, a BLM correct representative. Because if that was a lawyer, I would say I would hope he is. I want to say defrocked, disbarred.
That's what you do to a priest, isn't it?
Priest, yes. Yeah. Disbarred, or otherwise sanctioned, if that's a lawyer. He's calling for. Listen, he was saying I shouldn't even waste breath on this guy. This is a guy. Satan has filled this man's heart that we just listened to. Okay, biblically speaking. Mm-hmm. Okay, he's saying people try to choke us and kill us when we're loud. He was loud. Nobody's trying to choke him.
And he wants vigilantism.
What a what he's
sad
saying.
Listen, this doesn't. Are there racially motivated crimes in America? Yes, there are. There always has been and there always will be, because we got 340 million people who live here, and there's some bad apples amongst us. But Daniel Penny's was not. Well, everything you can tell about, that's the reason he was found not guilty, right?
That's right.
Because it was a multi-ethnic jury.
Yes.
People on the subway were of different ethnicities, black, white.
And guess what? Black people get afraid just like white people.
I know.
And there's somebody acting crazy.
This should have never. Yeah, this should have never have happened. Also, this. Allison, my wife and I were talking. We were saying, well, this is why people don't help anybody in New York. Because this Daniel Penny was just minding his own business. Happened to be on the subway. This guy starts threatening people around him with violence, and he gets involved to stop him, and puts a chokehold on this guy. The guy, Jordan Neely, died. I don't know why. What happened there? Was he drugged up, or did I don't know what happened.
He was still breathing when the police showed up.
He was.
Yeah.
So Daniel Penny, you could say just needed to let the guy do whatever he wanted to the passengers and not get involved.
And once you
walk away,
once you confront someone like that, because he had him wrapped up, had him in a chokehold.
You can't let him go.
Because you can't let him go. Listen, folks, I subdue criminals all the time. I usually do it at night while my community is asleep, and I patrol the streets and subdue criminals. Okay.
So you want a vigilante? Here's your guy right here.
You don't halfway subdue somebody.
No, you don't.
You either go all in, or you just sit there and you risk whatever's going to happen. And that's why, Tim, like you said, Daniel Penny is not a bad apple in the Big Apple.
He has no history of having any trouble with the law or anything. So anyway, he was found not guilty, so it's over, right? Except for the civil case.
The civil case.
Yes. Yeah. And I don't know if Alvin Bragg could bring other charges against him. I don't think that will happen, but you've got a lot of people talking. One of them, New York City Councilwoman Vicky Palladino, had this to say about the verdict and also the reaction by some in the Black Lives Matter movement. Cut number 3.
The man speaking, listen, look how many people were around him. What do you have, 5? 10? BLM, in my opinion, is just about washed up. Their message is done. Yeah. Everybody, this election with Trump showed us, and us as New Yorkers, I was born and raised here, this racism that they've tried to promote and did through 2020 when de Blasio was mayor and they all rose up. This is now dying because people are really starting to see right from wrong. Yeah. And this jury made it very, very clear. But Alvin Bragg is on a mission, as was that ADA who was despicable. How many times did they try to make this into a race issue by referring to Daniel in the courtroom as a white man? No. This is not a white or a black issue. Not at all. This was a right and a wrong issue.
Yeah.
And this guy, Jordan Neely, the one who died, well, I'm sorry he's dead. Okay? We should all, but he had 42 prior arrests.
Yeah.
The guy had mental illness.
Good grief.
Mental illness. Listen, I am sympathetic to the people who are saying that these big cities are failing the homeless, because some of them are homeless because they're mentally ill. Some are homeless because of substance abuse or because they don't want to work or whatever. But there is a percentage that is mentally ill, and you don't want them in your house. You have kids. If you don't have kids, if someone's mentally ill, you get them out. So I'm sympathetic to the cry that these big cities need to do something with mentally ill people, because they can become very violent. All right.
Yeah, but what can you do?
But that's not Daniel Penny's fault.
No.
And you can't expect the people on that subway just to sit there and take it.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry Jordan Neely's dead. His parents didn't apparently want him living with them, but now they're going to try to cash in on the fact that he's gone. So.
All right, we'll be back momentarily with more of today's issues on the American Family Radio Network. Tim, Ed, and Fred. And much more to talk about when we get back from this time out.
It's my turn.
Here is your host for My Turn, Don Wildmon.
Jesus told us to beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly are wolves. You'll know them by their fruits. Are grapes gathered from thorns or figs from thistles? Some years ago, the following item appeared in the newspaper. Quote, the author of the disparaging book, The Passover Plot, which states that Christ's crucifixion was faked to fulfill Old Testament prophecies about the Messiah, now questions the whole authority of the Christian church. Now Dr. Hugh Schoenfield, in Those Incredible Christians, lashes out at what he calls vested beliefs and ecclesiastical rubbish. The 68-year-old Jewish scholar is allegedly without a religious creed of his own, believing in God as pure spirit. End of quote. Well, now, how about that? Here's a man who he himself admits doesn't know what he believes, telling millions of people that their belief is rubbish. Well, personally, I'm tired of folks like Dr. Schoenfield. I'm tired of these self-appointed authorities who don't know what is right, except that everybody else is wrong. Yes, I'm tired. Tired of all the people who say God is dead who never knew he was alive. They live in their ivory palaces behind the sacred walls of education and spin out fancy theories about the nothingness of God. They never go down to the grave and watch a mother lay her child into the cold, hard earth. They never go to the hospital where the father of 4 young children is dying with cancer. They aren't ever called by the wife whose husband is an alcoholic. But they're sure after reading the textbooks that there is no God. I'm tired. Tired of the people who say the Bible is a lie who've never even read it. Our society is full of them, these intellectual illiterates who speak in pure ignorance of the subject matter. I'm tired. Tired of the people who say the church of today is irrelevant because we haven't been able to provide everybody with a mansion on the hill, a high income, a meaningful job, and the best social standing. I'm tired, yes. I'm tired of these fine people who say they can accept Christ as a great moral teacher, but not as the Son of God or the Savior of men. Little do these people realize the absurdity of their statement. A good moral teacher, but not God? If he wasn't the Son of God, indeed God himself, and did what he did and said what he said, then he was a blundering, blind, ignorant fool. Stupid, crazy. He was either who he said he was, or he was a crazy idiot. But you will have to accept one of those descriptions of him. God incarnate or stupid madman. Unfortunately, the New Testament just doesn't leave room for you to classify him as a great moral teacher, but not God himself. Yes, I'm tired of these know-it-alls who don't know what they believe. And let me add just one final word to them. They say they're searching for truth. If this be true, then maybe one day they will find what many of us have already found. You see, we have already found truth. We found it in a lowly Nazarene, apart from whom no truth can ever be found.
This has been My Turn with Don Wildmon, a production of the American Family Association.
However, as it is written, what no eye has seen, what no ear has heard, and what no human mind has conceived, the things God has prepared for those who love him. 1 Corinthians 2:9.
American Family Radio. This is today's issues. Email your comments to comments@afr.net. Past broadcasts of today's issues are available for listening and viewing in the archive at afr.net. Now, back to more of today's issues.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the program Today's Issues on American Family Radio. Tim, Ed, and Fred, thank you for listening to AFR. And I just want to clarify something I had mentioned. We were talking about the fellow who was arrested in Altoona, Pennsylvania. His name is
Luigi Mangione.
Yes, he was arrested for the murder of the United Healthcare CEO. You know, that's been in the news so much the last week, or how long it's been, a week. I said that I thought he would be released by Alvin Bragg, the district attorney in Manhattan. First of all, just to clarify, I don't even know if this case took place in Manhattan or not. I don't know where it took place, where the shooting took place. So I don't even know if it's his jurisdiction. And I didn't mean to say that he would let the shooter go scot-free. I don't think that charges have been already filed. So what I meant to say was that a lot of these big city district attorneys are big social justice advocates. So they don't believe in holding people, even violent criminals. They turn them out on the street all the time with no cash bail. So, you'll have a violent criminal come into the Manhattan District Attorney's office. Well, it wouldn't be his office. I guess it'd be the Criminal Justice Building or whatever, and be arraigned and then be told, come back for your trial in 6 months. But they're not. What I'm saying is they're not held.
Yeah,
they're often not held.
Because sometimes bail is, and the back and forth between prosecutors and a defense attorney, the back and forth is over how much bail, and are they a risk to flee or a risk to the public? And so sometimes they're kept in jail until their trial if they're, suspected of being a real danger to other people.
But I do believe that the majority of people in the big cities, and certainly New York's the biggest in America, within the city, not the suburbs now, within the city of New York, within the city of Chicago, within the city of Los Angeles, for example, in the city of San Francisco, the people that elect these far-left district attorneys agree with the far-left district attorney's philosophy. That's why they vote them back in and again and again and again. You say, well, that seems self-destructive. Why do you want violent criminals roaming your streets and you don't care that they're locked up? No, I would say the majority, not all, of voters in those deep blue places like Manhattan, they agree with the social justice movement more than they agree with putting taking violent criminals off the streets. Does that make sense?
Yes.
That's the only explanation you can have, because you see people say, good night, this is the guy's 40th arrest and he's still on the street? Yeah, because they don't believe in arresting and prosecuting and imprisoning people in these big cities. You might say, well, that's nuts. I agree. Yeah. I agree it's nuts, but this is the way they want to live. This is the way that people in these big cities want to live. They want to live. And they wouldn't say, I'm for violent crime.
Right.
They wouldn't raise their hands and say, hey, bring me more violent crime. But they would raise their hands and say, I'm for not putting these people behind bars. I'm for letting them roam the streets before we put them behind bars, because I believe in social justice. And they probably had a hard life, or they were disadvantaged, or they never had a dad, or whatever the reason why they.
And if you give them a shot, give them a chance.
Yeah,
they'll make.
Or some people say they're only arrested because their skin color is different, and so there's all kind of reasons why people are left-wingers when it comes to crime and social justice. But if you want to ask the question, why do these big cities keep have people that commit violent crimes over and over and over and over again, and they never seem to have to be punished for it? It's because the citizens who live there don't want them punished. Because the citizens that live there continue to vote or district attorneys who let them out of prison, and they continue to win elections like Alvin Bragg. Tell me,
yeah,
again,
yes.
I know that for a lot of people that sounds like that doesn't make any. That goes against the self-preservation, doesn't it?
Right.
Yes,
well,
it does.
I will just add this one other thing that I agree with all that you said in explaining their mentality, the mentality, I mean, of these social justice liberals who
are voters in those places.
I would also say that I think a lot of those social justice voters who are not living in the hood, quote unquote, they don't think it's ever going to happen to them anyway.
That's true.
And when it does, when they get carjacked, they're outraged.
Right.
Okay, because they never expected it to come to their neighborhood.
Where was it the other day? I was reading a story about it. One of these defund the police social influencers who had a lot of people following. I think she had moved from Texas to San Francisco or something, or was moving. Anyway, she was a big advocate in the Bay Area for defund the police. Well, she had a U-Haul, and she was moving from one place to another, and somebody stole her U-Haul and took off with it. And then she went on social media saying, "Where are the police? They won't come help me. They don't care."
Darcy Bell.
Are you saw that too?
Yeah, I did see it. I looked it up to get the name.
So Darcy's the one?
Yeah, anti-cop activist begs cops for help when everything she owns is stolen in San Francisco. And she said the cops didn't do. She didn't put it this way, but they didn't do anything.
Yeah, I'm not laughing because she got her
right.
By the way, it's pretty bold to steal the U-Haul.
Yeah,
oh, I mean, U-Haul.
I've heard in San Francisco, you don't leave anything in a vehicle, because there was some kind of news, maybe local news or whatever. They had a van with camera equipment. They were covering a story.
Yeah. They were foreign.
Yeah,
a foreign news agency. They were.
They had everything.
Well, in some of these big cities, the people who park downtown leave their windows down and their hatch open on the back of their car.
Yeah.
You seen this?
Yes. Because they don't want the windows broken.
Yeah, just take what you want.
Yeah.
They usually don't leave anything in there, but don't break my windows.
Yeah.
But they plan for their windows to be broke if they...
Because that's expensive to get repaired, so they basically...
Yeah, go ahead.
I remember San Francisco. Remember they passed this policy that you could steal up to $900?
Yeah.
Yes.
And you met somebody walks into a Walgreens.
Yeah.
Which they pretty well...
They do this, yeah. Walgreens are shutting down all
and they're running through the self-checkout beep, right up until they get to 900. Yeah. And then they walk out with the shopping cart.
Yeah.
Who would have seen that coming?
Yeah.
Well, anybody who understands human nature.
So the defund the police lady wants to know where the cops are when her U-Haul is stolen with everything she owns in there.
Well, yeah, the one who was supposed to help you, ma'am, lost his job because
you were for defund the police.
Yeah,
idiot.
They've been defunded.
Have a nice day, ma'am.
Okay, you can decide whether she's an idiot or not. I just sort of blurted that out there.
She reached what she said.
I've decided. I've already decided.
You've rendered that verdict?
I've rendered that verdict. Listen, I'll just say this one other thing. We've got a guest. We really do got to get to. But it's like these people who say, I'm going to go live with the Grizzlies.
Right.
And then they get eaten. And
their note was... And then they leave a note saying, "Help me."
And because they're always warned, you don't live with wild animals. And I just go, well,
I know.
If you should have seen that coming.
Yeah. All right, you're listening to today's issues. Well, every couple of months or so, we have with us Dr. Walter Wendler, who is the president of West Texas A&M University. And he joins us now via the phone. Dr. Wendler, good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Tim and gentlemen.
I like that, Dr. Wendler. You don't have to call Fred a gentleman. He's from Canada. So.
That's what we do here, Dr. Wendler. We hurl insults based on country origin and ethnicity.
I know it.
So, you heard what we were talking about there. We were also going to ask you, Dr. Wendler, by the way, just tell about your school, and then we want to jump into some topics here to cover with you.
Sure. West Texas A&M University, it's the northernmost university in the state. It's up in the Texas Panhandle. It's near Amarillo, just 15 miles south of Amarillo. It is the most conservative public university in the state of Texas, according to the presidential voting records in the 21st century, starting in 2004 up until this last month's election. We are the most conservative. We consistently vote more conservatively than any other area that's home to a public university based on county voting records.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of it.
Oh, you're proud of it?
I am proud of it.
Okay.
I am proud of
And
it.
we're proud for West Texas A&M University.
I'm
Seriously.
just surprised you hadn't been kicked out of the university system.
Well, they did try. They took a no confidence vote in me, but the Board of Regents and my boss, I don't know what they did with it. It happened, almost a year ago. But there's been, maybe there was no confidence in the no confidence vote. I don't know. I haven't talked much about it. But at any rate, so it's not, it's a bit of a struggle at times.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's, I feel like we're doing the right thing here, and I am proud of it. I think we do a good job.
Talk about, we had you on the topic I wanted to discuss. In light of the presidential election where Mr. Trump was voted in over the far left candidate, and generally across the country, there's a more conservative vote this time. Do you think there's going to be a pullback on the part of these far left protesters on college campuses, namely the ones who are promoting Hamas and against Israel and the anti-Semitism that we saw on display, a few months ago? How do you think that's going to affect the election's going to affect those kinds of left-wing protesters?
Well, the protesters and the programs that support the protesters, or could be deemed to support the protesters, I think of these as DEI initiatives. And DEI initiatives are counter to the purpose of the real university. And in Texas, Governor Abbott signed into law, actually 2 years ago, Senate Bill 17, and they eliminated the DEI offices at all Texas universities. So Texas, by and large, is the lead in the pack. And what I think about when I think about this, the fact of the matter is a university degree has one person's name on it. It doesn't have a group or an ideology, but an individual. And it's not given. It is earned through effort and attained results. It's not entered into through membership. And I think part of what has gone on university campuses is they have placed group membership in front of individual attainment. And, I find that's completely, in my mind, unacceptable. These should be merit-based environments. And, by the way, a lot of institutions are backing away from the DEI offices now. Harvard Business Review, not long ago, a few months ago, published a piece on why these initiatives are failing. And they're not producing the desired results. And people have lost, I think, have lost confidence in these kinds of initiatives to have any serious impact. It's mostly optics. And optics and check boxes and all that kind of thing, they don't make a university effective. They make it appear a particular way. But the fact of the matter is, I think at West Texas A&M University and at many other universities in the state of Texas, because of Governor Abbott's signing into law this bill that basically did away with DEI offices and DEI spending on university campuses. I think we're way ahead of the pack.
Yeah, that was
on that issue.
That was kind of like one of the first blows that has to be struck. By the way, folks, you're listening to the voice of Dr. Walter Wendler, who is president of West Texas A&M University. He's a friend of American Family Radio and is on this program, Today's Issues, every couple of months. We like to discuss some of the things happening in education, and Dr. Wendler has spent many years in that field, so we try to get a a perspective of what's happening around the country with Dr. Wendler. So, Dr. Wendler, there's an old joke that goes something like this. What do you call 3,000 lawyers on the bottom of the Pacific Ocean? And the answer is it's a good start. Okay, now.
Wow.
Okay, so I have personal friends who are attorneys, and it's just a joke. Okay, it's like blonde jokes.
The heart is
that gets
it's in your heart.
But Dr. Wendler, the point I'm trying to make is when people say that, I hope it's good-natured fun. But you know what? Striking at DEI, that's a good start. But the public education, not just public education, in fact, some of our problems have been led by private schools and higher education. The rot, the moral rot, the intellectual rot, the anti-Americanism, the pro-Marxist ideology that has been taught, this has gone on for decades. And so it seems to me that what you guys are doing at West Texas A&M University, what Governor Abbott started in Texas, that's a good start. How diligent do people still need to remain? Let's say in Texas, okay, maybe people in Texas are going, bada boom, bada bing. You know, Governor Abbott, launched the first, missiles in this fight. Now we can kick back. This fight's far from over, isn't it?
You couldn't be. You're spot on. It's a continual struggle between what is, in my mind, between what is morally and ethically correct and what the tendency of all of us, basically, as broken individuals of all of us, and we have to constantly battle that. At least I do every day, and I recognize that our organization has to do that too. And one of the things that bothers me that on university campuses, there's a lot of these institutions, and the privates were first among them, and they've stopped doing it. Harvard, MIT, Michigan, of course, is public, but dozens of other institutions have stopped requiring what I see as a loyalty oath in the form of DEI statements from faculty applicants, and that's according to Forbes this past summer. They would ask faculty to tell as part of the application process what their DEI perspectives were.
Wow.
And the faculty that wanted jobs at these institutions, they knew the right answer. They knew what they were supposed to say, and the ones that would say the wrong thing, they would not get anywhere else. Well, these institutions have stopped doing that. And I think, it was Ed, I think, that said this. I think that the idea that we should require that kind of stuff is the foundation on which moral rot is built. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. We want people who can think clearly, and I'll say critically, not in the sense like sometimes we use that word, but think and analyze ideas and say, look, this is not right. We shouldn't have to ask somebody what they think about something like this and basically sign an oath, which is what I see that as a loyalty oath, and universities were very much against that. Fact is, I wouldn't necessarily think it's a good idea, but I would, it is what it is. But I think these institutions have seen the light, just like much of corporate America. You guys know how many corporations have recently pulled back, done exactly what Governor Abbott has done in higher education here in Texas. But how many private enterprises have pulled back from these DEI efforts that don't yield any results? As a matter of fact, what they do is they breed distrust and undermine organizational culture and so on, where people work together as individuals to meet common goals and common needs. And I personally believe that's very important, and we need to recognize and appreciate it. I tell people all the time, At WT, we try to live by the golden rule. I try to treat people every day the way I want to be treated. I'm not successful at it, but that law of reciprocity, and that, by the way, is present in pretty much every organized religion on the face of the earth. If you want to be treated decently, treat people with decency and respect. And I don't know, but, you know, I've had people tell me this isn't a Southern Baptist Sunday school class, this is a public university. Well, why in the world should I even have to say that? I mean, why should I have to say that we need to treat people with decency and respect? We're supposed to be educated and civic-minded.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm on a bit of a rant.
Hey, it's okay.
Oh, you are.
I'm going to have to apologize to the lawyers in our audience as soon as we're done. But I'll go ahead and rant.
By the way, I have my son and daughter-in-law both graduated from law school at Regent University. So,
and I'll start with them. I'll start with them. My apologies.
All right. Dr. Walter Wendler, Wendler, president of West Texas A&M University, has been with us. Again, what's the website for the school, Dr. Wendler?
The website is WTAMU.edu. And if your readers want to look at, if your listeners want to look at something very interesting, we've started an institute on the campus. It's called the Hill Institute. And the next time I'm on, I'm going to talk to you about the board leadership of this institute. And you're going to say, my gosh, that is an amazing board for a little university up in West Texas.
We'll do it. Thank you, Dr. Wendler. Take care. Appreciate you being on with us.
Thanks.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. You all have a good day and Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to you.
By the way, somebody sent me a book about 2 months ago, I guess it was, and it was a book about lawyers, and it said
like lawyer jokes, or
lawyer jokes. The whole thing was lawyer jokes. It would say something about tales about lawyers and other reptiles. That was the title of the book. Tales of Lawyers and Other Reptiles.
Yeah, nobody likes a lawyer until you need one.
Yeah.
Same thing with police officers. Yeah. You know, in some of these big cities, they don't like police officers until someone's trying to break into your house at 2 a.m. So, folks, I hope you all understood. We have lawyers that work here with us. Yeah. I know personally lawyers. Had one in my Sunday school class, I guess, until I insulted him and he went somewhere else. But
I have Brother Abe on speed dial.
Well, listen, I like you, Ed. I know 3 lawyers with integrity, and they are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're out there.
Oh yes.
You got.
Are you going to say 6 or no?
You do have to search them out.
You do have to
search them out
through the bottom meters.
They're there.
We're kidding, folks.
They can worse.
We're kidding.
I don't think you got any lawyers listening to this show.
Not anymore.
Well, whatever few might have been listening.
Oh my goodness gracious.
And I said something about blonde jokes, and there was a little voice in my head that said,
"Right, don't do it.
You better back off.
Yeah,
you're going right off the cliff." My wife's blonde.
That's right.
Yeah,
so are half the ladies on the second floor of this building.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
And this coming from an Italian. Okay, so plenty of Italian jokes.
Right. Mm-hmm. All right, you're listening to today's issues on American Family
You want to
Radio.
hear one?
Italian joke? Yeah, give me an Italian joke.
What does the tire on an Italian car, what sound does it make when it goes flat?
What?
They go wop wop wop. That's pretty lowbrow, I'll admit.
That's one of those. That's a JJ. That's almost down there with JJ's corn.
Yeah, it's pretty corny. Yeah.
Popcorn. Yeah, the popcorn jokes. Anyway, wop.
Dago, wop wop.
Dago.
Because Dago and wop were both insults growing up. Being called a Dago and a wop. That actually was, my understanding, was an insult term given to Italians when there was one of the great migrations from Europe, and Italians were coming over, and they didn't have papers, and they just wrote or stamped without papers.
Oh, that's what WAP means?
That's what I've heard. That's what WAP
meant. I thought
meant.
It meant white Anglo-Protestant.
No,
that wasn't Italians.
White Anglo-Saxon Protestant. That's a WASP.
A WASP. Yeah, a WASP.
My understanding was that's what WAP meant.
WAP meant, okay.
And then they just call them WAPs.
Dago? Does that mean there goes?
Dago? No, I'm not sure what Dago means. what the origin of it is. You want me to look that up, Tim?
Sure, look it up. Look it up. All right.
It's Italian Day.
Yes.
We'll be back. We'll be back in 5 minutes with more jokes, more ethnic jokes of all kinds coming your way in 5 more minutes.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.
90.5 KTXG, Greenville, Dallas.
Speak. What would he say? The Bible subjects itself to historical verification.
He says, we saw this.
We go to the Bible wanting to hear what the living God has to say to us. When God speaks, what does he say?
The God who speaks. Visit stream.afa.net.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty P. President-elect Trump's choice for Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth, has been spending his days on Capitol Hill trying to rally support. Carmen Roberts has the latest.
President-elect Trump's nominee to lead the Pentagon, Pete Hegseth, is staying defiant in the face of allegations that critics say should sink his Senate confirmation. Hegseth on Fox's Hannity.
I look forward to the FBI background check. I look forward to the actual under oath conversations with senators as we go through the process.
Hegseth, a former Fox host, denies allegations of sexual assault and uncontrollable drinking as he faces confirmation.
I've heard great things about all of these senators and the questions they want to ask, and we look forward to earning these votes. That's what it's about.
Yesterday, Hegseth met again with GOP Senator Joni Ernst, who hinted she is beginning to support his nomination.
The Senate holding a hearing about the incoming President Donald Trump's border policies. Senator Ron Cornyn of Texas explains what America needs to do for immigration and how the government needs to send a message to those thinking of entering the country illegally.
We will not accept illegal border crossings as the new normal. What we will accept is lawful, orderly, humane immigration policies.
House Republicans holding their weekly press conference this morning where they briefly talked about the Kid Online Safety Act. House Speaker Mike Johnson says he does believe in protecting their children online and they must take initiative on this legislation. But there are still some areas of the bill that need to be addressed.
There's still some concern about the free speech components of that and whether it might lead to further censorship by the government of valid, conservative voices, for example. So we're working through all that.
The Department of Justice is being accused of trying to silence a whistleblower. Robert Thornton explains.
AFN has previously reported on Dr. Ethan Heim, the Houston doctor who came forward in 2022 alleging that Texas Children's Hospital violated state law by performing gender manipulation hormone treatments and surgeries on minors. Texas Scorecard reports a law firm representing Heim says that the DOJ filed a reply recently supporting its motion for a gag order against him. The gag order aims to effectively block Heim from retweeting notable figures who came to his support on social media platform X, according to the law firm. Jonathan Sines of Texas Values is watching this case and made these comments to AFN.
Dr. Heim is a friend of ours. We've had the pleasure of interacting with him several times. He's spoken at several of our events. But it's becoming very difficult for him to stand up for the truth because of the lawfare, just the almost limitless amount of time that the Department of Justice is putting and pressuring folks like him simply for telling the truth. Now, I'm hoping when President Trump takes office that he'll ask the Department of Justice to withdraw from this case.
Sign says often a whistleblower's only outlet to clear their name is to use their free speech rights.
When you're going up against the federal government, boy, that's quite an entity as an individual. This is a part of who we are as Americans. You have the right to use your voice. I wouldn't expect that Dr. Heim is going to dial it down any.
Signs went on to say that the case has gotten away from the DOJ and that they are in a desperate situation. I'm Robert Thornton.
Postmaster General Louis DeJoy testifying before Congress today as lawmakers question why the U.S. Postal Service is losing billions of dollars every year. Jeff Flock has more.
There are 31,000 post offices in the U.S., and half of them don't make enough money to justify being open. But anytime you try to talk about closing one, boy, you've opened a hornet's nest or poked one. So I take you to Capitol Hill, where the Postmaster General, Louis DeJoy, is talking about reform and, things like cutting back delivery times, increasing delivery times, maybe eliminating some people. That's not popular, though, when you try to implement it. Jim Comer is the chairman of the House Oversight Committee. He says he supports the reform, but it's probably going to mean cutting people.
Court records show New York prosecutors have charged a man with murder in the fatal shooting of United Healthcare's CEO. Luigi Nicholas Mangione is being held without bail in Pennsylvania after he was arrested and arraigned on gun, forgery, and other charges the day before. For American Family News, I'm Rusty P.
The American Family Association's mission is to inform, equip, and activate individuals to strengthen the moral foundations of our culture. Our goal is to be a leading organization in biblical worldview training for cultural transformation. We stand on the biblical truth that all human beings, including the unborn, are created in the image of God and are endowed by Him with the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
Thank you for standing with the American Family Association. Today's Issues continues on AFR with your host, Tim Wildmon, president of the American Family Association.
Hey, welcome back, everybody, to today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. Thanks for listening to AFR. Hey, if you want to download the podcast of this show or any shows where you can listen on demand, just go to afr.net. AFR.net, it's very simple. Click on podcast, and then the banner for this show and other shows is there, so you can download the podcast from this show or any shows we air here on American Family Radio. Tim Wildmon here with Ed Battagliano, and now Steve Paisley Jordahl joined us. Good morning, Steve.
Good morning, everybody.
Steve, just to review for those who haven't heard the news this morning, of course, the fellow was caught in Altoona, Pennsylvania, right, who killed,
correct,
allegedly, as Ed said, but he's evidently confessed to killing the CEO of United Healthcare.
Luigi, do you know him, Ed?
We already done that.
They've already. Yes.
we already did the Italian. Ed knew that coming in this morning.
Oh,
he was going to get
yes,
it.
I did.
One of the few groups you can do that to and get away with it.
That's true.
Okay, go ahead.
That's why I mentioned when I heard his name last night.
Right.
I just looked up the ceiling inside.
Right. All right, go ahead. Go ahead. He's been arrested. He will be sent to New York City, right?
He's going to be extradited to New York City, and they're put on trial for murder.
By the way, he confesses.
Well, actually, he has. That's
if he
true,
confesses,
actually.
do you even have to have a trial?
There will be some court proceeding. I don't know whether it's a trial. He has to be sentenced for sure. So, but I think he has. I mean, he told. What I heard him say, I think maybe you guys even read this, to the police, the federal officers, to make your jobs easier. Right. I'm going to go ahead and, tell you I did it because I respect what you do. Right. He said. So it's kind of a weird mix of. Yeah.
Tim mentioned this, and I was thinking I guess I could look this up, but that's what we have you here for. What part of New York City did he commit this? It wasn't Manhattan, was it?
It was Manhattan.
It was Manhattan.
Yeah, it was about 5 blocks north of Times Square.
So is Alvin Bragg going to oversee this? I guess he would.
Yeah, he would.
Well, there you go, Tim. That was what we were talking about in the first hour.
Yeah.
Manhattan. Okay.
All right, go ahead, Steve.
All right, just a little update here. There's a fire burning in California. How many times have we said that? This one down in Southern California in Malibu. It is threatening, or it has threatened, Pepperdine University, which is a beautiful school right on the coast. At this point, it is about 2,200 acres, and they're telling students to shelter in place in the library, in the campus center. I saw a video of...
During a fire?
I saw a video of students looking out a big window. The window is the full wall, right?
Yeah.
And there was a fire. It looked like it was lapping up against the building, and they were just standing there. So I don't know, but that's what they were told to do.
Shelter in place during a fire?
I don't know. Well, maybe the library's not flammable. I don't know.
Where did you go to school out there, Steve?
I went to Biola University.
Which is where?
It's in La Mirada, which is it's in LA. It's kind of between LA and Orange County.
Okay, you're talking about the Pepperdine's in Malibu?
In Malibu, that's on.
So that's north LA.
That's west of It's
west LA, northwest LA.
North of LA.
Oh, Los Angeles, yeah.
Viola, yeah.
Pepperdine. Is Pepperdine it's a Christian school, right?
I believe it is.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, so wow, so that's going on now, right, as we speak?
It is. Yes, as we speak. Now, the last thing I read is that the power is out at Pepperdine and everything, but they said the worst of the fire has blown past us.
Oh.
But there's still things to mop up, and there's still some danger there for Pepperdine. But yeah.
Maybe that's why they told the kids to shelter in place, is because of where it had already moved and where it was moving.
Yeah, I'll tell you what,
shift.
I know, in the heartland and where we live here in the South, tornadoes are a threat, especially in the spring, and in the spring in particular, and some in the fall too. But versus a wildfire, I don't know. I think I'll take my chances on a tornado. You can get out of the way. You have tornado warnings.
Yes.
So very few people are killed by tornadoes anymore because of the warning systems that we have. And, but you take these wildfires, they just burn out of control for sometimes weeks on end.
And they are, now obviously tornadoes can be moved, can come out of nowhere in terms of your,
right.
Where you're, what am I saying? Wherever you're living, wherever you're hunkered down, they can just drop out of the sky, I guess is what I was trying to say. But these fires, they move fast. You ever see them? I mean,
incredibly fast.
Yes.